can you become an effective storyteller? There are 4 steps, 4 techniques that I think are very effective and things that you can apply inside of your organization, and if you choose to, even inside of your life. The first tactic is looking at what the numbers actually mean. There's a quote, I don't remember who said it, but it was basically like, you can have the data tell any story that you want. Consider that a lot of studies show that 90% of a purchasing decision is actually subconscious, meaning that it is based on emotion. As much as we like to think that we might be rational creatures, logical creatures, the reality is that we are very much emotional beings. And a lot of the decisions that we make in our personal lives, a lot of the decisions that we make inside of our organizations are emotional. And the best way to get to that emotional aspect of anybody else is through a story. That gets to the second strategy, the second technique to be able to practice storytelling, and that is to connect with someone emotionally, or to connect with a group of people emotionally on that kind of human level. That's oftentimes the hardest part for people, because sometimes it means you have to put yourself out there a little bit. Sometimes it means you have to be a little bit vulnerable. Sometimes it means you might have to admit a struggle that you're going through. Sometimes it might have to mean that you're admitting that you don't know how to do something. So sometimes you have to put yourself out there as well. You need to make that first step so that somebody else can make that other step towards you. It really helps lower the guard for the other person or the groups of people. Maya Angelou said it best. People won't remember what you said or what you did. They will remember how you made them feel. And it's true. People will remember a feeling and an emotion far longer than they'll ever remember a statistic or a number or a chart or a graph that you might throw at them. When connecting emotionally, it's also important to understand your audience. Is it a group of moms that you're talking to? Are these your customers? Is it a group of dads? Is it a group of engineers? Who is the audience that you are actually engaging with? Try to understand your audience. And again, you're gonna hear me mention this, practice that bit of empathy, put yourself in their shoes, understand their self-interests, understand where they are coming from, and then you will be able to build that emotional connection. But if you simply come at these things of, I know everything, here are the facts, it's logical, how could you not do this? You're always gonna lose those arguments. The third technique I want to encourage you to practice is to get personal. People remember real stories much more than hypothetical stories or fictional stories. So if you're able to kind of put yourself and insert yourself into that story, let people know that you're experiencing something, you're dealing with something, then that is always a huge plus. There was a study done by a psychologist named Jerome Bruner, and he found that when you're able to create these types of stories, people remember things 20 times as effectively as when you don't have those stories and you just have those facts and figures. The good news is that nobody is able to tell your story as effectively as you. And you probably have all sorts of stories that people have never heard of. Put yourself in that perspective, put that little bit of empathy, and when you can bring in those personal stories, you're gonna find that they're gonna be more effective. The guard of other people around you will be let down, and you will much more effectively be able to build that human connection. But again, I understand that it might not be as comfortable to insert yourself in that story. It takes a little bit of practice. You can always start with something small. But when you remove yourself entirely, when you remove any kind of personal factors from the equation, you kind of distance yourself a little bit between yourself and the people that you are engaging and trying to have that conversation with, whether it be your customers, your prospects, your suppliers, whoever it might be. It doesn't mean you won't have any emotional connection, but it's not as close as you can get when you bring in that bit of a personal story. The fourth technique of telling that effective story is focusing on the main point, because that is still important. We've all had those conversations with our coworkers where they try to get to the story, but they ramble. They talk about all sorts of things, and at some point you lose the thread of the conversation. You no longer know what the main point is. What are they trying to get at? What are they trying to convey? And you just get lost. And that just immediately kills whatever it is that you're trying to get across. So you really want to consider what the goal of the story is. So before you walk into a conversation, before you pick up the phone, before you go into that meeting, if you have that story prepared, try to understand what is the goal that I am trying to accomplish? What is the main point? I want people to greenlight my project. I want my customer to get off this phone smiling. I want to come home and I want my spouse or significant other to be happy, right? Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you have that goal in mind, focusing on that main point. One of the ways that you can focus on the main point is just by setting the parameters, giving people the relevant context, painting that picture, making everything consistent, following that common thread, and not throwing in a bunch of other irrelevant details that might just throw you off course. Storytelling also requires time. It requires practice. It's not something that all of a sudden you're gonna get up in front of your organization, tell an amazing story, everyone's gonna applaud, and you're kind of the hero. It might happen, but chances are you're gonna need to fine tune and practice your story the same way that comedians do when they tell jokes. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. Check out futureofworkpodcast.com for more content. And do me a favor, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your preferred channel is. Thank you.